Good morning, YouTube hikers. Ray from Hike-ALOT again. We all hate them. The vast majority of us at one time or another have to deal with them. Today's video, all about blisters, prevention, and what I do on the backside if I do slip up and get one. So stay tuned and we'll dig into it. I think we can all agree that blisters on the trail can really take a lot of enjoyment out of your trip, and can, they can wreck a hike if they get bad enough. So focusing on prevention, we need to know what causes blisters. Blisters are going to come from too much friction, too much heat, too much moisture inside of your shoe. So we're going to work to minimize any and all three of those whenever possible. So we're going to roll through and talk about some prevention measures and see what we can do to keep us happier on the trail as we go forward. Okay guys, the first front on prevention is we're going to look at the shoes. Now it does not matter if you're using trail runners or hiking boots, you can be successful on the trail. But there are two factors you want to pay close attention to. You want to be sure that one, your shoes are properly sized for you. As you're out on the trail and putting on miles, a lot of us, your foot tends to swell. So you want to go a half size to a full size above your normal shoe sizing. And then also the second big factor is you want to pay attention to making sure that your shoes are properly broken in. It's usually not a good idea to take a brand new pair of shoes and go jump on the trail with them unless you know how you're going to respond to those. So it's a good idea to put those on, get them good and broken in before you hit the trail. In addition to proper sizing and breaking your shoe in, a lot of hikers really find good luck with prevention from adding additional sort of aftermarket insoles into their shoes. I personally have not ever felt the need to do that. I've been comfortable with the insoles and shoes that I've picked, and so if you find the benefit in those, please comment below. I'd love to hear. If you have a recommendation on an insole, I'd love to hear that one too. Never tried them, never felt the need to. Maybe I'm missing out on something. If so, let me know. Lastly, on the subject of shoes, we want to talk about lacing options. If you know where you're receiving those hot spots and blisters and just areas which you can tell things are starting to rub, just changing the way you've laced up your shoes can go a long way toward alleviate that and prevent that blister from really getting worse. I personally use this one in the top left. I call it a lace lock. I did a video on that sometime back, and I'll link that in the description below, and hopefully you guys can check that out and find it beneficial. It really works for me, especially if I'm doing uphill, downhill elevation changes. It sort of not only prevents the blisters, but prevents the dreaded black toenail that you may get from your toes banging into the end of your shoe. Okay everyone, the second area we're going to focus on for prevention are our socks. I've pretty much completely thrown away cotton. My cotton socks hold the moisture closer to my foot, which is going to contribute to one of our three legs of the tripod of heat, moisture, friction. So what did I replace my cotton socks with? Look for synthetics or wools. Tell you what, let's take a quick peek into my sock drawer. Looking around in here, we're going to see pretty fast three things. One, I need to do some more laundry. Two, if you're OCD, I probably just set off all of your spidey senses, because my lack of organization probably leaves some room to be desired. But then at the same time, you'll notice in there that it's a drawer full of wool socks. I don't even own cotton socks at this point. Wool socks for me seem to work well. I do really good with the Darn Tough socks. Also like the pack of socks. I've used those and a few other brands here and there, but kind of have a propensity for the Darn Toughs. Seem to respond well to me. I like the warranty, and at the same time, I rarely ever wear a pair out. Also on the sock front, there are also liner socks that some people really enjoy. I bought these. They're kind of dirty because they roll around in the bottom of my bag, and I keep them out there just in case I need them. Honestly, I have never used them before. I do loan them out from time to time for people that I'm hiking with on the trail, and they've been used a few times that way. Never personally been on my feet. And yes, I do wash them before I loan them out to the next person. It's okay, but they're a little dusty. But the users, they really seem to be pleased with using the sock liners, and a lot of people out there swear by them. I've never felt the need to do it because my methods of keeping up with stuff has been adequate for me thus far on the trail. But if you're one that has issues with it and think they may work for you, give them a whirl. Moving away from shoes and socks, other tools available to you to help reduce that friction component of the blister formula would include things like Moleskin, which are all very accustomed to, but there are also a handful of other things out there. You've got a camp of people, which I personally sit in, that's a fan of the tapes. There's a handful of different options out there. Some people like KT tape. I'm actually a fan of Leuko tape. I keep this pretty much, actually, let me show you how to keep it. Pretty much every set of trekking poles I own has a couple of feet of Leuko tape spooled around at least one pole. This way, if I encounter or start to get a hot spot or blister on the trail, I can sit down, pull my shoe off, address it with this, and not have to go rifling through my pack, or even take my pack off for that matter, to curtail that and get that covered up before it becomes problematic. I've got my blister kit right here, at least my blister prevention kit right here. All I need from here is just my little multi-tool pocket knife to zip that off, and I'm off to the races. Take me just a moment to treat my blister and be back on the trail. Other options, like I said, some people like Moleskin, some people like the KT tape. I'm a fan of Leuko tape. I'll actually put a link for that down below there, at least where I order it from. There's also gels and lubes. I know some people actually use Vaseline they'll put on their feet and along with some of the other lubes, will put that on their feet to help try to reduce that friction component. And then you also have, as you start getting blisters, you can get little products like this, the Blister Heal Hydro Seals. Now, I don't use these for hot spots and stuff like this, but I do use this if I have gotten a blister and sort of post-trail the treatment for it. The hydrogel stuff works really well from a healing perspective. So I am a fan of these, but more of a post-care product than an actual prevention product. Prevention product has been my experience with them. I just rub them off, so they're sort of not doing a whole lot of job, which is why I like the Leuko tape. The Leuko tape sticks really well, and it almost does not come off. From time to time, I forget it's on there and then have to pull it off subsequently. And last on the prevention front, before we get to what do I do if I get a blister, also want to talk about a couple things I do once I make camp in the evening. Actually, anytime I stop, I will try to take my shoes off, let my feet breathe a little bit, let them start, hopefully at least attempt to dry out to reduce that moisture and heat component. But I'll go through, especially after I've made camp, pull my shoes off, go barefoot absolutely as much as possible, get my socks hung up, let those things start drying out. But just sort of resting and elevating your foot helps a lot, especially with the swelling. But I also like, if I'm near a stream, I like to soak my feet and just go over there and clean them off and cool them down as quickly as possible. You don't have to do it for a long time, but just something to go ahead and get that heat out of there and let them cool down, get them nice and clean, get the salt and grime from the day off, and just clean yourself up, elevated, let them breathe through the night, everything dry out, and it goes a long way toward your foot health on the trail the next day. Okay guys, it's not very often that I get a blister because I pay a lot of attention to my feet, and I try to be conscious while I'm on the trail of continuing to pay attention to my feet so that I'm ahead of the blister curve and can treat those before they really get problematic. But on the off chance that a blister does occur, I want to take you through real quick exactly what I do to sort of mitigate that on the trail. I know there's always the great debate, do you pop it, do you not pop it? What's the right answer? Kind of walk you through what I do. Here we go. Okay guys, here we are with my suture test kit, and so this is going to be the bottom of my foot. I have an impromptu blister here. There's just a little bit of water we've got tucked away. A little leak there. A little simulated blister. Now inside of all of my kits, I will have not this entire little sewing kit, but instead I have one, see if I can pick it up over here, one pre-threaded needle that I do keep inside of everything and every kit. And this is my blister treatment. I know we all have that debate about, do we pop it, do we not pop it, and I get the logic of not popping it, because if I do pop it, I'm potentially exposing it to outside stuff that's going to make it more problematic, and it opens up the potential for me to getting an infection and some nasty stuff in there that I really don't want inside that open tissue. But it's also been my experience that if I don't pop mine, or at least reduce the inflammation on it, it just gets worse, and for me it's more uncomfortable on the trail, and I have to deal with it the entire time. So I will take my threaded needle, put it up here so you can see it, and what I will do is I will usually take some sort of, whether it's hand sanitizer, typically hand sanitizer, and I'll go from one end to the next and sanitize as much as possible on here. And that may be crazy, but that's what I do. And then I'm going to take, and right down at the base of the skin, I'm going to push my needle through the blister. So I can hold this down. And out the other end, I just pushed water out of there. Didn't seal that very well. Mop that out there. So I pull the thread through, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it all the way to the end where there's just a little bit of thread hanging on that end, and then I'm going to cut it out on this end. So I leave a little bit of thread hanging out both sides of the blister. Tie my knot back off on the end here, toss it back in my kit, and then what I'm left with here is two little tag ends that stick out. And I'll typically do this at camp at night, and then I'll pull a sock on before I go to bed so that this isn't going on inside my sleeping bag. But then what happens is through the night, the moisture inside here that's causing all that pressure, it weeps out through the thread. And so that what I'm left with in the morning is just a flat piece of tissue. Still leave the thread hanging in there, because if it does get any more inflammation through the day, it'll continue to weep out in my sock and shoe, which is kind of nasty, but keeps the pressure off. So I will go through, and it sort of all weeps out. In the mornings you'll have a little kind of wet stain spot in the bottom of your sock, but the blister discomfort is pretty much gone, and I can then turn around, slap some Neosporin or some sort of triple antibiotic ointment across the top of it, and grab my handy dandy Leuko tape and cover it up so that hopefully I'm not creating any more friction and tension on top of that. And that usually suffices, and when I get home then this tissue stays on, and we'll usually until it heals underneath, and then that top layer that's already really sort of dead just drops off. This may be absolutely nuts. I'm not a healthcare provider. This is what I have done on the trail, so you can take it for what it's worth. Okay guys, hopefully you found that beneficial, and we've given you a couple of nuggets that can keep you on the trail longer and happier and hiking away. And if you're out there on the trail right now watching this, just remember, left foot, right foot, repeat. We'll see you again soon.